At our events, one of the things that people always ask me about is how we parent our 4 children. Right now, we've got 4 kids, 7 and under, 2 boys, 2 girls. One has special needs. We just started homeschooling recently. You know, we've got 16 kids right here in my office as part of that homeschool co-op. And I figured, you know what, instead of me talking about it, let me get somebody who has experience in doing all of those things in a biblical perspective. So I've got none other than Pastor Benny Perez. What's up, man?
Hey, good to be back with you, Ryan. It's always an honor to be on your podcast.
Yeah, you know, we were golfing the other day, and I was like, man, you know, this guy has so much wisdom and not just how to build churches and communities and everything else, but you know, and just now your kids, they're out of the nest. You know, you just said your daughter just got married.
Yep.
And I'm like in the very beginning stages. So I'm like, okay, what kind of wisdom can I absorb in my current situation that I'm sure a lot of the listeners could?
Yeah. Well, yeah, first of all, here's what I would say, Ryan. Beyond our businesses, we run beyond even the church that I pastor.
Yeah.
Beyond my marriage, the number one priority is me raising my kids.
Yeah.
And I think me and my wife, we took this view of discipleship doesn't start with me discipling other men or her discipling women. Really, discipleship starts with us, with our three kids. And so we were determined that the world was not going to disciple our kids. Culture was not going to disciple our kids. And this might be a radical statement, but the church wasn't even going to disciple our kids. Primarily, we were going to disciple our kids. Now, no doubt the church plays a big role in that, but I don't want to abdicate me raising my kids as a pastor to my church. So we were very intentional in how we raised our kids, from what we allowed in to the house, what allowed in through the gateways, because there's gateways, right? Gateways are television, gateways the internet, gateways what they're listening to. So I think we were very intentional with that. And some people say, man, you seem like you were a little strict. I wouldn't say strict, I would say protective. Yeah. There's a big difference.
Yeah, you know, it's like my kids are still very young, but I can already see like the ways of the world creeping in so easily if I were to let it, right? Like sending them off to school or what they watch on YouTube and, you know, all the things they have access to now. And now I'm like, yep, I am going to create this environment where it becomes obvious that, man, I should be living life this way. Jesus is real. Like I read Olivia these Bible stories every night now, and she's starting to ask me like random questions, which means she's thinking about it. She was like asking me last night, she goes, Dad, was Jesus tan? And I was like, that's an odd question. Like, yeah, Jesus was definitely tan for sure. You know, he lived in the Middle East and, you know, he wasn't white. And she's like, okay, so he's tan like us. I'm like, yeah, probably. And then she's like, okay. And then she knows, like we were talking about the other day, that Jesus is coming back. She's like, so when is Jesus coming back? And I was like, well, the Bible tells us no one knows. If anyone tells you they know, just know that that person's an idiot. And she's like, okay, but he's not like coming back in like 30 days or like a month. I was like, he might. I was like, and then I started to like teach her very like deep theological things that most people don't even think about. And I'm like, well, we need to pretend and anticipate that he might be coming back tomorrow. Like that's how we should live, but we don't know. And it was just like, I'm starting to have these conversations with her at 5 years old, but she's like asking these questions now.
Yeah.
And so it's, but I don't think that would happen if I just threw her in a public school and freaking never read her Bible stories and just let her watch stupid crap. Like,
well, there's no doubt. And I want to say to you, to everybody's watching right now, I love that proactive, right? Parenting.
Yeah.
I think when we are proactive, we don't have to be so reactive in parenting. I'll explain to you. We are very proactive in parenting. I'll give you a big one. This is controversial for some people. So when my kids were really young, like we're talking about your kids' age.
Yeah.
We said this, the Perez household does not date until you're 18. Right?
Wow.
So when they're like 2, 3, 4, people say, oh, you said that when they were like in middle school. I said, no, that's too late.
Yeah.
So we told them This is our culture. But we would tell them why. We want you to enjoy your friends. We want you to be involved in activities. Now, our kids were homeschooled. Okay.
Yeah.
So we want, and so we gave them a framework of why we're saying you don't date. Now, I know this, that most kids that are dating, the typical dating, there's statistics that'll back this up. If kids start dating when they're 14, 15, their chances of having premarital sex skyrocket.
Yeah.
Right? We all know, you can't debate that fact.
Yeah.
But we started telling our kids, this is our culture. Every family has a culture. Now, for us, just like you, we were intentional in talking to our kids about biblical, right, principles. We even wrote like these little books that we had little self-published, these little cool little books that were picture books, and it just told them stories that they were able to see, right? But I think a lot of people abdicate their role, parents. Well, the church is going to teach it, or, they're going to learn it, by what to watch. And I'm all for that. But you are still the most influential person in your kid's life. You're Judah. He's 2 years old.
Yep.
He came running in here.
Yeah.
And man, you hugged him. And what I saw was so powerful, Ryan. You started speaking prophetically to his life.
Mm.
You started saying, you're going to be a worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're going to do. And the power of a parent's words in those formative years are so, we cannot underestimate that. That's why when I talk to parents, I'm like, guys, you got to be careful in your frustration.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all get frustrated. We all get frustrated. And I had to catch myself not getting so frustrated, letting things come out of my mouth. And so and here's another thing that we learned that we did well is we didn't really initially like discipline their behavior. We got beyond, yes, you shouldn't do that, but here's the reasons why. Because we know that belief always precedes behavior.
Mm.
So we're not so behavior first, we're belief first. So for instance, let me tell you what you did. Why is it wrong? Because, and this is when they were little, because this is what God says who you are. And as children of God, as who we are in Christ, that is not how we begin to build their identity and their belief in God at a young age.
Yeah.
So when they're playing sports, it's like, hey, you did your best, right? We didn't win. Okay, well, let me explain to you, right? Yeah. And they would kind of get upset. But I think that's another thing that we have to instill our identity and the right belief in our children. And yes, for sure, there's some behavior things, but we did that right. And here's one thing I would say, and we can talk more about this, but I'm a pastor, been in the ministry for 40 years. I'm 61, although I look 60. So I'm doing okay, right? But there's a lot of pastors' kids, Ryan.
Yeah, they don't turn out well.
They don't turn out well.
I was going to ask you that. Obviously every kid has their own choices in life that they're going to make.
100%.
But there's got to be some level of accountability for how your kids turn out.
And I would say no doubt. Now, everybody has a free choice. We know that.
Right.
But I took it upon myself, along with my wife, to say, we're going to create the guardrails. We're going to create the culture. We're going to create the environment that you talked about.
Yeah.
That's going to glorify God, biblical principles, kingdom first principles. And as long as we do that, and I know that we did that, and we prayed a lot. I pray, especially when they started hitting adolescence and those hormones are going, my God, I'm praying, right? I'm praying. But ultimately, I think if we did our part, obviously God does his part. Do some kids just make tragic choices? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But did we do our best? And I think me and Wendy could lay her head on the pillow, her being a pastor's kid, right? Her and Judah growing up in a pastor's home, 5 generations of pastors. She knew better than I did. Okay, here's how we got to make sure we parent our kids as kids whose parents are pastors.
Yeah.
And another thing is, like, our kids weren't perfect. I mean, if you go to my church LV, you will hear the story of my son who found himself with the stronghold of pornography.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, he has a great story of victory now. And I for a minute, I felt a little condemned. I was like, what did I do? Did I not do this? Did I not do that? And ultimately, we did the best that we could. But there was a crack that the enemy came in. We all know. And I took responsibility because we should have done a little bit more to lock down his phone. And now we did covenant eyes. We did all that. But when my son came and approached us and said, Dad, I need to talk to you. And that was a rough conversation to have.
Yeah.
He said, hey, Dad, I have a porn issue. I'm like, whoa, okay. The first thing I did is I just come in and I just hugged him and we both cried. I said, we're going to get through this together, right? To this day, my son's 25 and he's been freed from that for a lot of years now. But he would say, Dad, I was never afraid to come and tell you and Mom anything because I knew you would be disappointed. I knew you would, but I knew you wouldn't reject me.
Mm.
And I think that's something that me and Wendy, I think, fostered to say, tell our kids, you can tell us anything.
Right.
And we're going to accept you and we'll deal with the situation. But again, that goes back to, we had those guardrails. We built a culture that glorified God. And we were the same at home as we were on the pulpit preaching. And I think that's another thing when it comes to pastors' kids.
I was going to say that they see a hypocritical message.
Yeah.
Talking about one thing on the pulpit and not living it out at home.
So unfortunately, that might be the case for some people. And I know it's the case for some people. And I'm not saying how great I am or how great my wife is, but I love to worship. There's one thing. I think I'm a good communicator. I've raised up great communicators. I'm a good communicator. But there's one thing nobody could beat me in. I know I'm not supposed to be. Paul says, don't compare one to another, but I'm comparing. I'm comparing. Okay. So in case you're going to write a comment, he's comparing. I am comparing.
Yep.
I love to worship, not a worship leader, but a worshiper. And my kids to this day, might be a good podcast to bring my kids on here to ask them questions because now they're grown. But my son would say, Dad, like, you know how many times you woke us up in the morning when you were praising and worshiping God downstairs?
So loud.
So loud. And it's not good singing either. I mean, it was terrible singing, but I wanted them to intentionally know that I'm worshiping God. I'm praying. To this day, I get up early in the morning. Now I have a casita I built in my backyard and they're grateful for that because I only have one in the home now. But I think, again, modeling the life of a follower of Jesus is more important than just talking to them about it.
Yeah, and that's what I've realized too, even with my kids being young. So it's like, you're saying Judah, my 2-year-old's going to be a worship leader because all he hears is worship music. And so he knows lyrics now, he sings, he dances, he just loves it. And then, I shared like even just last night with Olivia, but very similar in your morning story. She's been watching me read my Bible every morning for years. And then this happened a couple of years ago. She goes, Dad, I want a Bible so I can read with you in the morning.
Wow.
And, she can't read at this time or anything. And so, but we buy her a Bible and then she's like, I want like a pen so I can write in it like you guys do. Because she sees, me and her mom writing in it. And she legit, she just wanted to copy the actions and take part in what I've been doing every morning and modeling for her. But then I was like, okay, she sees me do it, but she doesn't know. And then even the other day, I've been reading her all the Bible stories for the last year and a half. I'm like, hey, and this is not to be hyper extreme, but I was like, I have a choice. I can read her random just kids stories like Dr. Seuss or whatever, or I can just read her Bible stories. And the Bible stories are way more entertaining. Why am I not just teaching her the Bible? So anyways, I've been teaching her I've been reading her Bible stories every night. And if she wants to read a random story, I'll be like, yeah, but we're going to always read a Bible story, right? And so she knows all the stories now at 5. Legit. Wow. She's like, no, I want to read about the one with Joseph and the rainbow coat. That specific, random things stick out to her. And we were talking about it last night, and she was just asking me about different things. And she was like, when Jesus walked on water, I was like, yeah. She goes, how do I walk on water? And I was like, huh. Once again, these are like really theological things to think about because they're real, and it'd be easy to be like, oh, well, we're not. I'm like, well, I guess if you had enough faith, it's possible, and she's like, what's faith? And so now I'm like explaining to her that. I'm like, well, faith is like believing in something. It's like, having confidence in what you can't see. That's what Hebrews would tell us. And I'm like catching myself explaining things to a 5-year-old that I explained to 40-year-old men in my Bible study, that she is just more in the environment than they are. And I'm like, man, what is she going to become being so exposed at 5 years old? And, but like, it's impossible if I'm myself not just doing those things.
For sure.
And it doesn't like want to flow out of me to like,
for sure.
You know what, let's read our Bible. It doesn't make sense to just read these random books. Like, let's do this. Like that's on me to make that choice as a parent. And I think a lot of parents are operating on autopilot. Yeah. And they're not intentional.
Yeah. And I think the word, when you were talking, the word intentional came to my mind, right? Being intentional. There's also scripture that you're modeling. Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, that should be the scripture. So Judah and your other kids, they've seen you read your Bible. They're asking you about the Bible. Hey, these stories. And I think being intentional. And another thing too, and you're doing it so well, is they're not too young.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, oh, they're 5 or they're 3. But it's amazing how those stories that you're reading to them, their brains are just absorbing it.
Yeah.
And then the Holy Spirit takes that.
Yep.
And the Holy Spirit begins to bring those back to their minds.
I'm shocked at what she remembers.
Well, you said a coat. What did she say? A coat with what?
Rainbow coat. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, can you read the story, where the guy uses a rock as his pillow? And I was like, what are you talking about? I literally couldn't. I was like,
Jacob.
I was like, what story are you talking about? And she's like, I'll find it. And then it's this picture of Jacob laying on the rock. And I was like, I didn't even know that story.
Yeah.
But I've read it to her before. It just didn't register with me that she was talking about that story.
Well, I think, again, the ear gate, what are they hearing?
Yeah.
Right. And so going back when our kids were small, I don't know, I think it's still on VeggieTales or whatever. VeggieTales, and there was, I think, Superbook or whatever else.
Superbook's awesome. They watch a lot of that.
Yeah, some of those things, it's like, okay, good. You want to watch cartoons? Hey, watch this, right? You want to read something? We would buy, obviously, some of those storybooks, biblical storybooks were so good for them.
Yeah.
But I think that's important. I think they need to develop a desire for the word, and that starts when they're young.
Yeah.
And so those stories are going to live with them the rest of their life. Now, what's so interesting when you're talking, because I begin to go back in my mind, it actually made me a better preacher. Because if I could explain it
to a kid,
yeah, right? The greatest communicators are those that make complicated things simple. And that's what Jesus did. Hey, look at the flowers. Look at the birds. And I'm like, man, I did not know that God was helping me become a better communicator as I'm explaining these principles to my kids when they were young. Now, as they get older, obviously, the conversation changes, but I think the principles that you put in them at 2, 5, 7, man, those are huge payoffs when they get into their teenage years.
Yeah. We, being an entrepreneur, I have like a million ideas all the time. The problem is like, I actually go after them. And so it just puts a lot on the team's plate, but we just recently started a new business off this idea God downloaded a couple of months ago about a new Christian toy and kind of like Superbook VeggieTales.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, I was like, one day buying all these stuff for my kids, I was like, dude, all these toys kind of suck. Like, it's not like, there's not really that many good Christian, like action figures, toys, like whatever. Right. And it's like, Veggie Tales is like how old?
Oh my gosh. My kids are, I mean,
Bro, I don't even know. Like decades and decades. And I'm like, there hasn't really been much innovation.
It's true.
In the Christian IP of toys and kids stuff. So then God just gave me this download and I was like, dude, I guess I'll start a Christian toy company. So we actually just raised quite a bit of money to go do it. And so I've started the process of doing all that. So it's going to be cool. Hey, if you're a Christian business leader who wants to join a Bible study, then go to tentmakers.us. We've got Bible studies all over the world right now. They are completely free to join. All you got to do is go to tentmakers.us. You can also get access to our other events that we've got going on throughout the year. It's a lot of fun. So if you're trying to grow in your faith and your business, head on over to Tent Makers.
Well, toys that aren't cheesy, that aren't like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I want them for me and my kids.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know,
I mean, I remember when Christian films started coming out years ago. Like, they were just terrible.
Yeah.
And now look at the level they are now. So
yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Killing it.
So when I have grandkids one day, hopefully next year sometime, I might be buying. Well, I don't know what the name of the line is, but hey,
I'll show you some stuff after this, and you can get your feedback. But
sounds good.
Yeah, it's even interesting because when I launch it, you know, we'll launch it, but then it's like everyone who listens to this show, everyone is be like, "That's awesome," because they're all entrepreneurial minded. But then you get like these, I don't know, poverty-minded Christians. I'm like, using the gospel to make money. I'm like, bro, like, so you want them to just buy Marvel toys and stuff? Like, wouldn't a Jesus toy be better? Like, these things don't make themselves. Like, they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce and make, and investors got to get returns and people got to work. Like, you know, this Bible right here, this is the Maxwell Leadership Bible. I'm pretty sure Maxwell put a lot of effort into building this Bible, and
100%,
you know, like he's made money doing this Bible. So I don't know. It's just like, no one on this show will care, but I already can see like but
isn't that true though, Ryan? Anything you do, right? Oh, you're making money off the gospel, or you're doing this. And when you said that, I'm like, what was that story? It's like, hey, Jesus, we could have done this and given it to the poor. And Jesus said, the poor you'll have always, because they were looking like, hey, you should be using it this way instead of that way. And here's what I found out. If people don't know your heart, they're always going to judge, right? They're, as a pastor or as an entrepreneur or whatever, it's like, listen, I'm going to do what God's put in my heart. I know why I'm doing it. And you may not understand my motive, but I think to have a toy line that's really cool and not cheesy. I mean, is there anything wrong with Spider-Man? No. Is there anything wrong with no? But how about a cool toy that has a biblical kind of like origin to it? And how cool would that be? I mean, I think that's great.
It teaches people.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you go make animations and all these things.
Yeah, I'll be an investor. Tell me what the investment is, so we can do that.
Well, and the other part of it too, the only reason I even thought about it was because, you know, for Tent Makers, our nonprofit, I was like, man, I'm so tired of like trying to get donors to raise money. How can I make this self-sustaining?
That's so good.
You know, so I don't have to like just go always be asking for donations. And so I'm like, why don't I just build something else that can fund it?
And that's a great idea. I think that, I mean, that's actually biblical, right? Tent makers.
Yeah.
I mean, Apostle Paul did that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it'll be cool to see. I'm excited for it. But, I mean, we're talking about kids, we're talking about environments and all these things, but you mentioned one thing at the very beginning about, outside of your wife, you know, your kids are your most important thing. Talk from a biblical perspective, because I've talked about this before of like, no, your kids are not more important than your wife. Mm-mm. Where do we find this?
Well, you find it, first of all, in the book of Genesis, where, you know, God created Adam and Eve, right? And so the first union, the first institution that you find is marriage.
Yeah.
That's the first one that you see, right? So it's marriage, out of marriage, husband and wife. I don't know if I need to clarify male and female. Okay. I just want to, I want to make sure that now the children come. And so it's husband and wife, and then children. Because if the marriage is not solid, if the marriage is not built on a biblical marriage, then the children are not going to get a good view of what God intended. So marriage, my wife and me, that this will work on our marriage. Why? Because we are modeling to our kids what a biblical marriage should be like. And here's what, from a practical perspective too, because we're almost there, Ryan. Our youngest is 18 and my other two out of the house. I've seen this over and over again when moms and dads or parents, husbands and wives make the kids the priority. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. They are going to move out. They are going to leave the house.
Yeah.
And then I've seen this, that it was so much about the children that now you don't even know who you're married to. And it's like, I've seen, and there's a statistic that marriages now, people have been married 20 years, 25 years, and the kids leave and they end up not divorcing because it's just crazy, right? So I'm going to be with my wife the rest of my life. And the kids are like, we did our best. And here's a biblical model that when my daughter married her husband, they established their own household.
Yeah.
So it's leave and cleave, right? And my other son, when he gets married, same thing. And then my
leave
daughter.
And cleave. What is that?
Well, the Bible says that a man shall leave his household,
yep,
leave his mother and father, and now cleave or become one with his wife.
Yep.
Is a covenant. It's not a contract. So in God's eyes, we become one. Becoming one doesn't happen instantaneously. In God's eyes, it does. But when you talk about marriage, and I deal with a lot of people in marriage, and it's like, man, we're having a difficult time. I said, no, you're having a time of becoming one.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Iron sharpens iron, and you begin to grow. You begin to work this thing out. But as you do it the biblical way, your kids begin to see how marriage should be done God's way. I'll give you an example. Our kids understand that there's going to be conflict.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't do that when they were little kids, but they saw me and Wendy having conversation, and they didn't see us elevating. They didn't see us yelling. They didn't see us anything. And so having a healthy marriage is actually preparing your kids to, this is how you handle marriage. And that's why it's so important. And I just think it's biblically, right? So you got the husband and wife, you got children. And out of that, that's the nucleus of that family. But my goal is to disciple my kids so one day now they get married, they have children, and now all of a sudden they realize, wait, I got to work on this marriage primarily. The kids come and we keep that model going, and we're going to have not just strong marriages, we're going to have, I believe, healthier kids.
Yeah.
Because it's not so kid-centric.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes.
Yeah. And I think to your point, right? Like we literally become one, and it's like the Bible says our kids will leave us to become one with 100%. Whoever they become with, right? Yes. So it's like they're one and we're one.
Mm-hmm.
And like their spouse is now more important than us as parents and vice versa. It was still their mom to me is my number one priority, even above them. And it's hard for like parents to fathom that. But even like I think about the prodigal son and these different stories throughout the Bible where like the kids leave and it's like, look, he leaves. It's up to him. He's a kid. Mm-hmm. He lives his own life. He can do whatever he wants. But it's like there's so much stronger language about maintaining your marriage than like your kids will leave. Like that's just part of it.
Well, I mean, you look at the marriages, right? Like, it's the image of Christ in the church.
Yeah.
Right. It's the whole image of that, right? It's not Christ in the church. It's not, kids and mom and dad. No, it's husband and wife. The emphasis has always been there. Now, culture would kind of try and twist that, but I believe it's just a biblical mandate that me and Woody got to work hard.
Yeah.
And we want to have a healthier marriage. And we've been married 27 years. Okay. And our kids have seen us work on our marriage. And I'm with you, Ryan. Listen, when my son-in-law came and asked for permission to marry my daughter, we had a really good discussion. And I looked at him And I said to him, I said, Ezra, when you marry my daughter, responsibility for her life transfers from me to you. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I want him to feel that weight. It wasn't like, yeah, I love her and she's hot and, and now we could have sex and we could whatever, right? I said, no, it is a sacred responsibility, Ezra. Now you are going to form your own household.
Yeah.
And now your decisions as a couple, regardless of what me and Wendy think, your decisions now are paramount. Now, you would be smart to take wisdom from us, but ultimately, like, even now, it's like
you run your household. It's yours.
Exactly. I don't usurp, not that I could, but it's like, hey, here's what we think. But ultimately, Ezra and Bella, it's your own household now. And I think that's healthy. But somebody's like, all about their kids. Man, I've seen this. I've seen this crazy stuff. Like these kids are like 30 years old and you're still trying to parent them. They're married and it's like, they're married, guys. But you don't have anything outside of your kids. And so that's where your energy goes and your focus goes. And that's where it gets a little bit wanky. And people are like, what? I go, listen, I don't want to make mistakes. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
They're going to make mistakes. Let them make them. They're going to grow. They'll come back and ask you for advice. And here's another thing for my kids. I wasn't always like a helicopter, hovering. Right. So I grew up in an era where there was helicopter parents. They're always hovering. There's always hovering. So there's a whole study in helicopter parents. But then there was another term that came. There was bulldozer parents. Bulldozer parents are the parents that said, I don't want my kids to ever have to, go through something hard. And so as a bulldozer parent, you would just like bulldoze everything out of the way, not letting them know that adversity is part of their growing.
Right.
And so we see when you have these bulldozer parents, the kids get into the real world and their parents aren't there and they don't know what it's like to have little adversity. And I think we have to be careful that we're there to guide, we're there to guard, but we have to let them at a certain age begin to make some decisions and then say, okay, how did that work out for you? Okay, what was the results of this? And now there's this whole thing about gentle parenting.
Yeah, what is that? I've heard about it.
Man, it's like, from my understanding, gentle parenting is like, well, there's like no necessary repercussions. There's no discipline, certainly no spanking. There's no saying no. Hey, little Johnny, how are you feeling right now? The kid is 3 years old. I mean, like, he's self-centered. I was self-centered at 3 years old. And it's almost like you're trying to parent them as if they're like older. And I see this, it's like parents will just walk away and kids screaming at Target. Wow! I'm like, okay. When I was growing up, that would never happen as a kid.
Yeah.
My kids, that would never happen. I would take my kid, I would take him outside. I'd take him in the car, and if I had to, I'd drive them home. And at home or in the car, we would have not just a discussion, but we would just say, okay, listen, you can't do this. And here's what's crazy. We saw this not too long ago, that a little kid ends up slapping his mom.
Oh, jeez.
And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, there's some things that are just wrong. Now there's going to be a debate. Should we even talk about spanking? Should we even talk about that? Because some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I got spanked as a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. And I made it.
What does the Bible say about spanking?
Well, there's a difference between, I think, discipline and spanking your child and obviously abuse.
Yeah.
I don't think if you swat your kid or however you want to term it, I don't think it just gets their attention. Now, is there abuse? 100%. Is there the 100%? Now, we did, up to a certain age, we did spank our kids.
Yeah.
Right? Not often, but there was that time when we did. Okay. Now, I know today, I mean, they may light us up on this one, but I'm just saying that I learned that now there came a time where it's like, dude, I'm not going to spank my kid when he's 10 or 11, 12 years old. I mean, there's a difference there. But I think there's a moment where children recognize, oh, wait a second, this is wrong.
Yeah.
We just didn't discipline their behavior. We talked about why they were doing it, and tried to get them to understand.
Proverbs about like the rod being good?
Well, yes, and I have my Bible, but we probably could look it up. But the Bible does say, let's look it up.
Yeah.
Let's look up. I have a good Bible assistant. His name is Google.
Yeah.
And let's see what Google says, because spare the rod.
Yeah. What does the Bible say about spanking? I just asked chat. Let's see. I know there's.
Well, there is verses in there. Yeah. Right. There are verses in there.
Yeah.
And,
Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their child.
There you go.
But the one who loves their child is careful to discipline them.
Yes.
Then Proverbs 22:15, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from them.
Yes.
And then Proverbs 23:13, encourage discipline and says it won't harm the child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's there in Proverbs.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan, is there obviously a way to do that? Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think you don't spank your child in anger.
Right.
You don't spank your child in utter frustration, right?
Yeah.
But there is a biblical mandate that there should be some kind of discipline when it comes to your children. Don't let little 5-year-old or 7-year-old little Johnny or Susie, kind of make up their mind. Here's what I'm going to tell people is that somebody's influencing your children, and it should be you and not culture.
Yeah.
And so when something is not right, that was not our first response, spanking. But our first response was, hey, let me tell you why this is wrong.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what the Bible says about this. And that was even young, right? So I think that's important that we have this as the standard and not what culture says when it comes to marriage, when it comes to raising our kids. I'm a kingdom first kind of a guy, and I know you are too. And that is the thing. So what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say about all kinds of topics? And that is one of them that we need to address.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're talking about that kid that slapped his mom. I was just like thinking about that kid's future. And I was like, man, what is that kid going to turn out like? I'm like, that kid's going to be like the worst kid ever. Mm-hmm. He has no discipline. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. He disrespects authority. I was like, good luck. That kid, that mom letting that kid do that has set that kid up for so much failure. It's just, it's selfish on her part, or just ignorant, however you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've even been thinking about it with our kids. And so we spank our kids right now, not often, but it usually happens. Like you would see that sweet little girl, Olivia, and you'd think she was just the sweetest kid ever all the time. And I just told you about these Bible stories, like she's an angel. And then the amount of time she won't do what you say and just, not listen, it would shock you. And I'm like, Olivia, we need to do this or we need to do that. Mm-hmm. And then we get this massive tantrum.
Right.
And you're just like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And then it's just like, start throwing things, start just being crazy and hurting her own siblings and other stuff. And I'm like, nope, you hurt your siblings, you get it back. Right. And then she gets a spanking and then, she learns whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. And it just is what it is. And I can tell you afterwards, we start to see a better difference in, her understanding why what she just did was bad.
Mm-hmm.
We teach our kids about consequences too. And I even say this to the guys in our Bible. It's funny. What I've started to realize is the same way I treat my kids is almost the same way I treat adults. It's literally, it's almost the exact same.
Yep.
And I just never knew it until I started talking. I'm like, dude, I'm like dealing with these kids. I've been dealing with kids forever. They're just bigger and older.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I tell all the guys in our Bible study is like, look, dude, here's the reality of the situation. God absolutely will forgive you. No sin is too big to be forgiven. 100%. You're a new creation, all these things. But here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
There are still real world consequences for your sin.
Mm-hmm.
So just because God forgave you does not mean there's still no price to pay here on the real world, right?
Right.
You go steal, you get caught, something's going to happen. God forgives you, but still there are real world consequences. You might go to jail, you might whatever, right? And so that's kind of like what I've been teaching our kids too. It's like, hey, when you do something wrong, you don't just get off scotch-free. Like Jesus he's not mad at you. You're forgiven. We still love you, all these things, but you are going to have to go sit in timeout because of what you did. You are going to have to go do this because of what you did. You might get a spanking for what you did. We still love you, but you have to pay the price for what you did. Like, that's how the world works.
Well, here's a great example. So when my son came to us about the pornography.
Yeah.
Okay. He was actually, serving at the church and doing things of that nature. Forgiveness, like you said, is given by God.
Yeah.
We believe in the grace of God. Doesn't change his identity in Christ. But guess what? My son had to be sat down for a season because we can't compromise that.
Yeah.
Because he's the pastor's son.
Yep.
Did he like that? No. But to this day, he will tell you he understands consequences.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. But he understood now that, actually, Dad, I'm glad you did that because I needed to get healthy. I needed to get whole. I needed to get free. So then when I get back into ministry, quote, serving, he was in a better place. So he understood consequences. It's like, yeah, God forgives me, but if I keep spending more money than I make,
I'm going to be dead.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I get the calls from the credit card or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, God forgave me.
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's always consequences. And that's where people need to hear. And I think it's important that you do teach your kids that, right?
Yeah.
There is consequence to this. There is consequence to that. And I think for them to see that, but it has to be consistent. I've seen parents being inconsistent.
Yeah.
So they don't hold the line all the time.
Yeah.
And especially when you get tired. Oh, whatever. I've been there a few times. Oh, just go ahead.
Yeah.
But the problem is I know you're tired. And here's what I tell parents. It's long days, but short years.
Mm-hmm. Dude, this is...
Right? Did you understand what I just said, right?
Long days.
Long days is like, man, you're in that grind. But then you wake up one day and like, oh my gosh, she's 21. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So I said, guys, please, because we have a lot of young staff. Most of our staff is young at our church.
Yeah.
And now they're raising young kids, right? And Michael and Gia, great couple. I mean, they are just phenomenal pastors on staff. And they have two kids, man. They're young. Like, I think it's 5 and 2. And they are energy, like energy balls, right? And I said, listen, guys, I know it's long days right now, but it's going to be short years. Just to hang in there, be consistent. I think consistency is key to raising kids so that kids understand that, okay, I'm going to give you another chance. Okay, one more chance. And by the time your kids know, nah, they're not going to do nothing.
Yeah.
So if you're consistent, that's another key that we did is we're consistent. No, we told you once. No, you need to go to your room.
Yep.
That's it. And they learn now that there's not 2, 3, 4. Nope, we're speaking one time. Now it's your choice. Okay. And now to this day, it's like, dude, like, no, I already told you. No, he's 18. I'm going to go spank him, But we have discussions about that now. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
To raising kids that are going to actually do good in the world out there.
You mentioned something that, you didn't let your son serve for a season so that you could get right. And the Bible talks about elders having their families in order
100%.
if they want to serve. And I see that happen in ministry a lot where it's like people get so caught up serving that they end up neglecting their family.
Yep.
And I think it's even true in business and other stuff where it's like, dude, I think I'm doing the right thing by focusing on my business and making more money for my family. I think I'm doing the right thing by serving 3 different ways in the church and all this stuff.
Right.
I'm like, bro, you ain't helping anybody right now.
Yes.
All right. You ain't helping the church. You ain't helping the business. Like, if your family falls apart, there is no justification for all this other stuff you think you're doing.
Yes. 100%. When we started the church in 2003, our youngest was 2 years old. Okay. So we parachuted into Vegas, right? From Seattle, coming in, don't know hardly anybody. So we start building this church, and God starts to bless our church.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we were one of the fastest growing churches in America. It was pretty awesome. It was great. And man, things are exploding. We're moving, da, 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 da. And so we had a consultant come in, and now our kids, you know, this is about 10 years into our church plan. Our kids are like, oh, wait a second. We got 3 kids now. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And his name is Dr. Sam Chand. And Dr. Sam Chand, we brought him in, leadership consultant. And he said, so I've done a whole SWOT analysis on you and your church and all that, right? I said, great, Dr. Chand. And he goes, how honest do you want me to be? I said, I want you to be really honest, Dr. Chand. Like, tell me how great a preacher I am. Tell me what I'm doing here. You know what he told me, Ryan? He said this to me. He goes, and he's a guy, he has this Indian accent from India, Pastor Benny. Your kids don't care how big your church is. Your kids don't care like how many investment properties you have. Your kids don't care about any of that. You know what your kids care about? They care about time with you. And he leaned in. He's this little, and he goes, you're not spending time with your kids. You're not building memories. You're not making memories with your kids. And Pastor Benny, that's the most important thing you could do. I mean, it kind of shocked me, right? And so I met with, I had a discussion with Wendy, my wife, and she goes, wow, Dr. Chand's right.
I didn't want to say it.
And here's what I had to make a decision, Ryan. You know what I did? I went out and I bought timeshares.
Really?
Yes. Now, I don't know.
You would be forced to go take them vacations?
You. Yeah. Yes, I was forced because I didn't grow up taking vacations as a kid. No knock on my parents. It just wasn't that. And so I knew if I spent money,
you'd do it.
I would do it. So I ended up buying 2 timeshares.
Okay.
And at least
that's
every
a good
year,
timeshare close hook for anybody who's selling timeshares.
Yes. In fact, if you want, I could come work part-time, train your team. But but you know what it did? We still have the timeshare today.
Wow.
It's in Newport Coast.
Wow.
In Newport Beach.
So it actually was a good investment.
It's a great investment, right?
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say it was good.
It was great because our kids to this day, we still go there. Now, they go as adult kids and they use it and we stay someplace else. But here's the crazy thing, Brian. The memories that my kids have at that place.
Yeah.
And then we were determined that we're taking our kids everywhere. And so it was like, whatever. Our kids have been in safaris in South Africa,
right.
New Zealand, all over Australia. And here's the point. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a busy pastor, whatever, you need to build memories with your kids.
Yep.
And that's so important. And we did not say church versus family. We did church together. So it wasn't like the church has my dad and mom. No, we did it together. But that man, and I want to challenge people right now. I know there's so many, and you're one of the great entrepreneur leaders, literally, not just in America, but around the world. And so many of these incredible men and women that are entrepreneurs are watching. And what we're saying is so important. I saw you before, and I was sitting here. You called your son over. You hugged him. You talked to him. I want to encourage you with this, Ryan, because believe it or not, I've seen the opposite. I've seen the opposite where, hey, and the most important thing is I'm doing my podcast to the guest. And it's like, and this is what it should have been. Like, I was like a wallflower. And the most important thing took place. And then your daughter walked in. And you were looking at her. That right there, trust me, from an old guy to a young guy, an old lion to a young lion, I'm telling you right now, those moments with your kids, we can't like perceive it, but something is happening to them to say, when I walk into the room, my dad looks at me, calls me, loves me. That right there, shoot, that did something. And it reminded me, like, encourage the entrepreneur. I'm going 9 figures. Cool. But are you leaving your kids behind?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any. My church is 5, 6, 7,000. Cool, bro. I get it. It's all nice. Been there. It's great. but I want my kids to be along with the journey with me. And now all three of my kids don't have to. They want to.
Yeah.
They serve at the church.
Mm.
They serve at the church. Like I tell them, you don't have to go to Saturday night. Dad, I know we don't have to. I love church.
Mm.
Like, what? Like, there's Saturday nights I don't want to go because March Madness is on. What is going on here?
Yeah.
But we did something right because you valued your family above all the other stuff, the fame, the fortune, all that. What good is it? You know the verse, right? What good is it if a man, what?
Gain the world, but
loses his soul.
Yeah.
Right? And I would add, and loses his family.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that.
Yeah. You know what I realized as it's easy to compartmentalize your life in different areas, right? You're like, oh, this is my business. And then this is my, you know, family and, you know, stuff. And then I've just realized as I've just intertwined everything into one, it's been much more fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll give an example, even back to the faith and business side of things. So I made the shift a few years ago to be like, you know what? I'm not separating these things anymore. They're just together. And so we're going to pray. We're going to have podcasts where we have pastors on. We're going to have worship events at our big conferences. Like it's just all one. And it's made life way easier. And then people be like, well, you know, you're using faith to grow your business. And I'll be like, yeah. What else would God want? Why would God not want you to incorporate faith into your business? And then also too, why would God also not want my business to grow and thrive if I'm putting him first and everything else? Now, granted, is it going to grow and thrive? It doesn't really matter the outcome wise, but like when you just look at the process of it, would God be happier if I segregate the two and never mention him in my business to appease man? Or would he be happier that I'm incorporating it into everything that I do, into my family, you know, with the school that we have, into, you know, creating toys and whatever else? It's like, why, in what world would faith be severed from any activity in life?
Well, because it comes from that thought where, well, your faith is private, right? That's your private.
Yeah.
As a follower of Jesus, Ryan, I'm not segregated in fact that, okay, this is Jesus time and this is this time. No, as a follower of Jesus, everything about my life is for his glory and for his honor.
Yeah.
Right. So when I look at it that way, I'm like, no, like I can't separate me and Jesus. Like we're one. Yeah. So he comes into my business. So there's kingdom principles I'm going to talk about. Yeah. And this is how I live my life. And this is my standards. And where do you get these from? I get it right here. Right here. This is the kingdom constitution. The constitution is right here. And I can't separate this. Well, I can't talk about this in my business. I can't talk about this in my life. No. I talk about Jesus on the golf course.
Yep.
I talk about Jesus at restaurants. I talk about, he comes up. It's like me saying, well, me and my wife are married, but I'm not really talking about my wife in any other context except at home. My wife would like what? Like, you know, we're married, you know, and the only time you talk about me or talk to me is at home. Yeah. This whole private thing, I don't think it's biblical. I think that we are light and we're salt, and wherever we go, we represent the king and the kingdom. Yeah. Right. And you can't get away from, when we do it God's way. My life verse is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. Yeah. It's the power of priority. So no, Ryan, I think you're right on. I think that especially as a kingdom entrepreneur, that my faith is the foundation for everything that I do. Yeah. So we're going to have like conversations about that. So, you know, I golf at a place that you golf at. Yeah. And as soon as they find out I'm a pastor, oh man, you should hear the conversations we're having, like on that golf course. And they start talking about, man, the church is don't you think it's like a money-making machine, and churches are, and they start going down that road. I said, well, and I start talking about the Bible. Immediately they say, well, I don't want to talk about the Bible. I said, well, you can't talk to me about my world without talking about the Bible. Yeah. Because now it's your opinion. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what scripture says. And it's amazing that these guys are like, they have this view of like, well, Benny, it's, here's one. You've heard this. Well, I believe in God, but it's really personal. And does anybody else know that you really are? Well, I separate that from my business and because it doesn't be, and I'm like, bro, I don't know where you got that thought from.
You didn't get it from the Bible.
You didn't get it from the Bible.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's just go there. Where do people get that from, Ryan? Where do people
From the enemy. If it's not from God, it's from the enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And culture, right? Because culture says keep that private. But man, you see all kinds of people that are not keeping a lot of stuff private. They're coming out.
Yeah.
They're coming out. And I'm just like, you're bold with your beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's time that we are bold with my belief. Like, here's another one. Well, pastors shouldn't be blessed or pastors, whatever, right? And it goes down the money thing. Now, we could have a great conversation, maybe another podcast on that, because I'm actually a pastor, right? And I'm just like, where do people get that from? Now, we could use the church, obviously, I'm not saying that. But as a pastor who's an entrepreneur now, like, from my understanding, Ryan, you business world, but now you're kind of like going into the church world.
Yeah.
I'm church world.
Yeah.
Going into the business world.
Yeah.
I don't see a difference. I just see that, hey, I'm going to do my kingdom assignment, and now I'm going into entrepreneurial space, and I'm going to do what God's called me to do. As a result of that, if I make money, I think that's good that I make money.
Yeah.
I want to give more money back to my church. I want to give more money to other ministries. And I think people just have these ideas and thoughts. And I think you said it pretty succinctly, that doesn't come from God. It comes from the enemy.
Yeah. I had a reel the other day where I talked about how church isn't optional. And I was just like, look, dude, like, I will take my kids to church every Sunday.
Yep.
Regardless of whether they want to go or not, because I'm setting a standard for them. And, in business, I would show up to work every day because guess what? If I don't, I get fired. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of guys treat church as optional. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I feel like it, we'll go. And it's like, well, you create this lower standard now for your family and your kids when you lead like that. And I go, it's just to each their own. I just think your standard's kind of weak. And it is what it is. And they're like, well, the church is not a building. It's us together. And I said, correct. But you need to read Hebrews 10:25. It says, do not give up meeting together. Some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, we are the church. The church isn't a building. You're right. But we need to meet together consistently. So where are we meeting? Usually in a building. But like, if you're not meeting with other believers consistently and you're keeping your faith as this thing between you and God one-on-one, we have not read the same Bible. Mm-hmm. And my guess is I probably read it a little more than you have, if that's your belief, because there's no way you could have read the Bible and come up with that conclusion.
Yeah.
That your faith is this private thing and you don't need to be around other believers or people or a building or anything else. There's no way you came to that conclusion.
Unless you weren't reading your Bible.
Unless you didn't read the Bible or you can't read.
So I've heard this. Hey, it's me and Jesus.
Yeah.
It's me and Jesus. I said, nope. It's you, Jesus, and others.
Yeah.
When you go to the book of Acts, because I go through the book of Acts. I'm going through the book of Acts right now. They went house to house, fellowshipping, breaking bread, meeting in the temple.
Yeah.
Right? It's all there, right? And so there's something powerful to teach our kids that the house of God, AKA a church, right? There's so many great churches, in the Las Vegas Valley, so many of them, and all across America. I think as a parent, we go and worship God together. This is what we do. And we build a good spiritual habit with our kids. Now, that's not the only place that we meet God.
Yeah.
We meet God on Monday, on Tuesday. We have our private time with God. There is no question. And I just think for parents to instill that consistency in your kids, as a pastor, it's like, pray for me, pastor, because my kids don't want to come to church anymore. And these people were inconsistent coming every weekend themselves.
Hey, that's my whole point with this. It's like, well, why don't you think your kids want to go? You don't even want to go.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the latest statistic, Ryan, you could fact check this with your team, but the average American Christian attends church once every 4 to 6 weeks.
And that's a Christian.
That's what I'm saying. American Christian.
Yeah.
If that is, just say I come once every 4 weeks, once a month.
Yeah.
And I have kids. What am I communicating to my kids?
Yeah.
That church isn't really that important. Sports is, or here's another one I got. Well, Pastor, we had family day, family time. I'm like, okay, I get it. But why don't family day and family time start with the house of God?
Yeah.
And then you could go eat lunch. And then you could have a swimming pool. You could do whatever. Plan your family day around God's house if it's Sunday.
See, like when I preach at our events and different things, and even when I lead Bible study, I'm like, I don't know. I would be probably, unfortunately, like one of those condemnation pastors. Like I need to like share the good news way more because I'm like, all right, there's plenty of good news. Like everyone gets the good news. Like I want to like cut to the core of the problem here and like call it out for what it is because we need to change. And like I'll tell the guys in our Bible study, dude, I've had this Bible study at my office in my home for 8 years straight.
Yeah.
And I go, guys, hand to God, I have not missed one Bible study that I have been in town. Mm-hmm. If I'm in town, I have led the Bible study. Nothing else was a bigger priority than making sure I was there that week. Mm-hmm. It's an hour. It's an hour and a half every week. And I go, why are you guys so inconsistent with coming? Right? Do you guys miss showing up to work? Because if you did, you'd be fired. Right? Do you guys miss, other things in your life? Because if you did, you wouldn't have the success that you have. No, what the problem is you don't think this is a priority. It's that simple. And you guys can call it, you guys can make every excuse of, I got this going on and that going. It's just not a priority because the other things you don't miss. And the other things take 40 hours. Mm-hmm. We're talking about 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
And Sunday service is no different, right? It's like, so the reality is let's just call a spade a spade. It's not a priority for you. Mm-hmm. What do you make with that? And then I just say it. So just call it for what it is and decide what you want to do with that information.
Well, one of my friends, Craig Rochelle, I saw on just recently on social media, and he said this, he said, you make time for that which is important to you.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? I mean,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So
if it was important, you would never miss it.
100%. So a lot of us, we don't miss our workouts.
Yep.
No matter what. A lot of us don't miss our tea times, no matter what.
I would never miss that.
A lot of us don't miss March Madness, and my UCLA Bruins lost. But my point is it's so true. And I don't know if I would call it condemnation, Ryan. I think I would call it like really having people like, I would call it like kind of preaching would be like waking people up to the, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's like awareness.
Yeah.
Like, people are just unaware of like what's actually happening.
Yes.
They don't think it's that big of a deal.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you don't get it.
But especially it is a big deal.
Yeah.
If we go back to the families, and the younger your kids are, the more you could get that into them at that young age.
Yeah.
You will see them grow up and it's like, hey, mom, dad, aren't you going to church? Oh, we're going to go to church.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you see your kids now, even like motivating me, like with prayer and fasting. And it's like, oh, it actually worked that we showed them the priority of life, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's good. And I think, because you do that Bible study, I'm like, yeah, guys, I mean, you have 8, 9 figure, whatever, entrepreneurs. Can you get to even 6 or 7 figures by being inconsistent, Ryan? I want to ask you that question.
No.
Are there things that you do, even if you don't want to do them, you need to continue to do them to reach a certain level of success, right?
Yep.
Okay. We know that in the business world. We know that, I mean, in our physical bodies, I'm not, please don't look at me. We'll look at somebody else. But we all know that if I consistently work out, if I consistently do this, I will get results.
Yeah.
And we don't place the importance. And here it is. I said this at church the other day. The most important part of your life, beyond finances, beyond your physical fitness, beyond your relationships. Right? We know health, wealth, and relationships, those three, right? I said it's your spiritual life.
Yeah.
And if your spiritual life does not flourish and is not growing,
yeah,
then everything else, no matter how successful you are, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
And this is where we need to get back to this right here every morning.
I think the problem is that people can't tangibly see it in their normal eyes, right? Like if my financial health is not good, clearly I see it in my bank account with the foreclosure
100%.
papers, the bad credit, whatever,
Yes.
right? If my health is bad, clearly I can see it. You look like crap. Like it's very obvious to see. If my relationships aren't well, I feel it. It's like, bro, like I can see my wife and I are distant, but the spiritual life, I mean, if you're not a believer, you just ignore it and you don't even know it exists half the time, right? You've suppressed it. If your spiritual life as a Christian starts to become more distant, I think a lot of Christians' problems is they're just like, well, I'm still saved, so it's all good, even if that's not great. Like it would be like if you were financially, you just knew you could never run out of money. I think that's how people treat their spiritual life. They're like, I know that I'm always saved, so I can just kind of keep putting this off, and it's not a big deal. Whereas we know with money, you can't keep putting it off. You will go broke. You will be homeless. But we don't treat our spiritual life that way.
No, because I think what we do is we treat it as, we don't treat it as it should be treated, and it's all about intimacy. It's all about relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't think you'll see it right away. Like if I end up spending more than I make, I'm going to see that probably in about 2 months, 3 months, pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
But what we don't see is that when my spiritual life begins to kind of wane, there are signs. And here's what I've learned about this. All of a sudden now I'm struggling with my thoughts more than I normally would.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden now I feel a pull of temptation that I wouldn't normally feel as strong before. To me, there are signs, because people come to me and go, man, I'm struggling with this. I'm like, okay, when did that happen? And I will trace it back to the inconsistency of church. Okay, so I'm not going to use
I say that in the
names.
Bible study all the time too. Whenever I see guys not show up for months at a time.
Okay, so
I'm like, bro, what's going on? Oh, well, this is happening, and that's why I can't make it. I'm like, no, that's happening because you have not been making it.
So you help them make the connection that they're not aware of.
Yeah.
Because they think they don't see the connection. So I got a phone call from a very prominent individual. I'll leave it at that. And man, my marriage, and my wife wants to divorce me. And okay, now this individual wants me to come in, Ryan, and save their marriage.
Yeah.
But I have not seen you at church.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
If you're not even coming consistently to the house of God, I don't know if you're actually really praying, being in the word yourself. So now it is like red alert.
Yeah.
And you know what I said to this guy? I said, we're having prayer and fasting for the first part of the new year. So we do every year.
Yeah.
We'll have 600-700 people coming out at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Show up.
Ask me if he showed up, Ryan.
He didn't.
One day, Ryan.
Yeah.
Did he show up the next day? No.
Yeah.
Because now the pain isn't that great. Now, this is where I'm a little bit different than other guys. Next time he called me,
You told him no. You're done.
I said, bro, I asked you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what, well, I got busy. I got this. I got that. And I think we do people a disservice when we don't hold them accountable. No, you made the decision.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you, but you got to start making those decisions, man. And quit telling me you can't do it. You can, because that's just...
So it's gentle parenting adults. That's what it is. I mean, it's like, bro, I told you what you had to do. You didn't do it. There's consequences.
There's consequences to that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give my time. We have limited time.
Yeah.
Right? The thing that people pay for the most is, can you save me time?
Yeah.
Can I get to my goal faster than anybody? Can you collapse time for me?
Yeah.
Like in real estate or whatever. Yeah. Okay. You're my coach. What do I have to pay? That's great. Why? Because you collapse time. I don't have time. I can help you grow spiritually exponentially if you would actually listen to what I tell you to do, but you don't want to. So you're just going to have, this kind of like self-styled kind of growth, a walk with God. And when it doesn't work, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you before, and you don't want to do it. And it's like, then I hear like, man, he's a mean pastor. I came to him for help. And what I've learned about people that talk about other pastors and leaders that they were, quote, under, it's like most of them will spin stories, but most of the leaders they're talking about won't even tell the real story. You want to know why we don't do that? It's because I don't want to get caught up in the mud. But all I know is you're not doing what we told you to do. And now you're blaming me because I didn't come and rescue you again. I'm not going to rescue you. You have to take responsibility for your life. My son, 25 years old, BJ. Yeah. I helped set up your budget, or Bella or Benaiah. And I'm not there. I'm not there every day looking at their stuff. I have to let them experience some stuff.
Yeah.
And when you do, most of the time people are going to come like, dude, you were right, Ryan, man, you were right. You know what? I'm showing up I'm going to show up every day or every week now because you're right. And sometimes people just need somebody who loves them enough, Ryan, to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
That's what we do. I love you, bro. I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to tell you, but I want to I love you. And if you don't love somebody enough to tell them the truth, I don't know how deep your love is for them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I turned to Ryan Pineda for a second.
Yeah,
there,
no,
but
dude, I was like, yeah. Preach. Tell him. But it is true. I mean, I'm going to do, I've been talking to Mindy about it. This year, we want to do a marriage retreat.
There you go.
We've never done one before. I think it'd be I see it as a big need. And I think it'd be fun. I mean, we throw events for a living and different things. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff we could do. So if anyone wants to do it, let us know in the comments. But, dude, I'm super hard on the guys because obviously, as the Bible says, you're the leader of your marriage, of your household, all these things. And so whenever guys come to me with their marriage problems, I say, okay, so like, how did it get to this point? And typically it's the blame game, of the wife. And I go, no. How did you, as the leader, let it get to this point? Because at one point you guys loved each other and lovey-dovey and it was great. And then at some point, something happened where you started to drift. It wasn't like all at once, like, what happened? And, well, I don't know, this and that. I'll be like, so, it's like trying to get to the core of the issue. But I go, at the end of the day, here's how I see it, and this may be just too black and white, and I'm sure there's random cases that could, whatever. But at the end of the day, I have the most influence on my wife out of anyone in the world. I spend the most time with her.
Right.
I lead her. So if my wife is starting to act all crazy and do these things, I'm probably going to take accountability and be like, what am I doing that is like causing her to become so crazy and act this way? Right. And a lot of times it's because you're doing something crazy yourself or neglecting or whatever. And I'm like, in my mind, it's just like, if you are just out serving your wife and you are loving her and providing and doing all these things, it's almost impossible. And you both are following God for it to end up this way, And every time I see somebody with like a failed marriage or anything else, if they're being real with themselves, especially the men, you could point back to the moments where you failed as a man. Yeah.
I tell, being married 27 years now, I tell men, because we talk about you're the head of the household. And I say it this way, I said, let me tell you what that means. It means you go first.
Yeah.
What? You go first in saying, hey, I was wrong. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
You go first. Like you lead the family in worship. You go first. Like growing personally. You go first. That's what a real leader is.
Yeah.
A real leader doesn't tell you. A real leader says, no, I go first and you follow me.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us because then I take responsibility as a man to say, no, I go first.
Yeah.
Like Ryan, if somebody broke into your house and they're threatening your family, would you even have a second thought that you would stand between that individual and your family? Would it be like, none?
Yeah.
Like it's your natural instinct that I go first. I will lay down my life if need be for my family.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get guys to understand. Well, my wife needs to come and apologize to me first. And, when she says she's sorry and I like, bro, maybe humility on your part would be good.
That's a funny story, dude. We had a bunch of guys in our group get married very fast and young.
Yeah.
So they're now learning what it really means to be married beyond just having sex. And so he's like, yeah, we got in this argument because this happened. And I asked her if she wanted to apologize after I apologized. I'm like, bro, you're so dumb. And I was like, why would you ask her if she now has anything to apologize? Because he's like, I came to her and I apologized and did the right thing. I was like, and that's where it should have ended. Yes. You apologized and you move on and it's fine. But now you're like, okay, I apologize. Do you have anything to apologize? I was like, do you know how dumb you sound? And he's just like, what do you mean? She was wrong. I go, I don't care if she was wrong. You apologize and then you just move on.
Yeah.
You're over here looking for,
I
just was dying because I was like, bro.
Well, I mean, I'm going to ask for forgiveness for what I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's it.
That's it. Like, because the motive is, okay, I said, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Don't you have anything to apologize for?
And now what you didn't know, man.
You just made it worse.
You made it worse, 100% worse. Yeah. Man, we should do a marriage one. I've been married a long enough time to have some funny stories to tell.
Oh, dude. I keep seeing these stories and I just crack up. I'm like, why would you say that? In what world did you think that was smart?
In somebody else's world, but not my world. My world. Here's what I've learned is that when I own up to my thing.
Yeah.
And let God deal with their thing.
Yeah.
I even had to do this with my kids when they were young, Ryan. I didn't hear anybody tell me to do this. I remember I was wrong with my kids.
Yeah.
I lost it with one of my kids and I was angry and I yelled at them and I was justifying it. Well, I was tired and I told them they wouldn't stop. And so I remember it was BJ and I called him back down from his room. And of course, he was still upset, and he was young. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, BJ," I said, "I need to talk with you." And I got down on my knees so that I'm literally like eye to eye with him. And I said, "Son," I said, "I was wrong. Dad was wrong. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. It wasn't you. It was me."
Right.
And in our household, this is what we say. Will you please forgive me? And he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, Dad, I forgive you. I love you." I said, "Man, thank you, son."
Yeah.
And we hugged.
Yeah.
Right. My son would tell you, he remembers those times when I went first.
Yeah.
Now, did I wish he would have said, "Yeah, Dad, I was acting, da, da, da." Yeah, I wish he would have said that, but it wasn't about him. It was about me.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it becomes about me and I want to be right with my wife, I want to own it. I want to be right. Okay, God, I own it, right? Man, that's a beautiful place to be. But I think what holds back men is pride.
Yeah,
it's our pride.
We want to be right.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to be right? I want to be right.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's like, no, in the older I get, it's like, no, I just want to own up for my stuff.
Yeah.
And if
I'm wronged, whatever.
Yeah. But if that guy, I know he's wrong.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't recognize it, me telling him is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I just want to be right and be able to sleep.
Yeah. And I don't need satisfaction of him telling me I'm right. I learned that from the internet.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, I just get tons of people who say I'm wrong all the time. And it's just like, okay, but I know I'm right. Like it's all good.
Yeah.
I don't need to go debate every commenter or every reaction video or anyone who says something about me that's not true. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. That's all good.
Yeah.
Like I know my identity.
Yeah. I think.
I don't even want to say I'm right because I'm not always right, but I know my identity.
Yeah. And you don't have to you've had on the show Myron.
Yeah.
Myron, talking with Myron, he doesn't even deal with those people anymore. Just like I've been called Scamaclaws and I've been called this and all this other stuff. And he goes, I just don't even respond.
Yeah.
Because I know who I am. I know what I'm supposed to do. And I just keep on moving on. What a beautiful place to live. I'm like, okay, that's a cool place to live. And I just responsible to God, to his scripture, to my family.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I know I'm wrong with somebody, hey, Brian, man, I was wrong. Man, please forgive me. I think people respect you more when you say I was wrong.
For sure.
You know, and regardless of they say anything themselves.
Yeah.
I want to be cool. Okay, that's good. That's great. So
yeah, the other thing, the last part I'll bring up, and then we'll start to wrap up here, is I tell the guys too, it's like, look, you know, God made you the stronger vehicle. Like he talks about that. Like you're meant to carry more than your wife. And so it's like, if you're looking for this equal thing, bro, like, so you want the weaker vessel to like be equal to you? Like, dude, you should be able to handle more criticism. You should be able to handle more stress, more being right, but not, you know, being told you're right. Like it's just part of being a man.
Yeah.
Like quit trying to do that. Like, dude, just bear more.
Well, and I think that's what comes with leadership.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you lead multiple companies. I lead companies and I lead a church. And I say this to guys that are on my team. I say, you'll never know what it's like to lead in the first chair. You just won't. And so I'm not expecting them to know what it's like. I just have to lead regardless of what they know. And as a husband, there are just some things, like you said, I'm going to carry more weight. I'm going to do more things.
Yeah.
And I think husbands, here's what we do. We want our wives to understand.
Yeah.
But does really your staff understand
No, they have no idea.
They have no idea. Exactly. So I just say she has no idea. They have no idea. And guess what? They don't need to.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
I'm just going to play my role and do what God has called me to do because God put me in this role.
You know, Kobe had a cool story. Kobe is my favorite player growing up.
So was mine.
Yeah. And I remember he had this one story where he said, man, you know, when I come home from a game or whatever else, my kids are so happy to see me and they want to play and all this stuff. And, you know, they don't know that I've been working and all this stuff for the last 12 hours, just finished a game. All they want to see is whether or not I play with them. Yeah, and it's like, I have a choice. I say yes or say no. That's good. They don't care or know what I've been going through. That's kind of what I tell people. It's like, look, man, you have to carry a lot as a man. You got to, you know, if you're financially providing, you're trying to be a good dad, you're trying to be a great husband, you're trying to follow God. Like, dude, I could list 100 things that you have to do that is like, as a man, I feel for you. But at the same time, you got to understand that at the end of the day, we all have to deal with it. And so whether or not you're acknowledged for it, whether you're tired today, whether you're energized today, you still have to perform. That's what being a man's all about.
Yeah. And my last comment to that would be get around other men, right? That can encourage you. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Be involved in your Bible study consistently.
Yeah.
Be around with other men. Other men in my life strengthen me.
Yeah.
Because they know the battle.
Yeah.
They know the battle.
And by the way, for anyone listening to this, if you didn't know, I have our nonprofit Tent Makers has Bible studies all across the world. If you go to tentmakers.us, you can go join one today. They're all free. So you could easily get around. There is no excuse for why you can't find other men. You're like, oh, well, you know, my church doesn't have a group, or I don't know other entrepreneurs. And literally, you have no excuse now. It's tentmakers.us. You can join any group, virtual or in person, across the world. So go check that out. But last thing I want to wrap up with is you and I were talking about this on the golf course. And I said, man, you know, one of the ways that you really can see somebody's work is really only over like longevity over time. And you've been doing this a long time, right?
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of pastors fake it for a period before finally being exposed or this or that. You could see, you know, churches come and go. But like, to me, it's just like you can really see how well somebody has shepherded based on the fruit and what's come from that. And I was telling you, like, one of the things I really respect about you is like so many pastors and churches and different things have come in from you in some way, somehow.
Sure.
And I likened it to like the NFL, like how they have these coaching trees of all these great head coaches. They all at some point worked for Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll or whoever. And it's like, you've had a lot of different people work for you who have now gone on to plant successful churches and do cool things. Why do you think that you've been able to, I guess, create so many, the Bible tells us to create disciples, but I would take it a step further in that, like, a lot of these are not just disciples, because we're all called to create just disciples every day, but ministry disciples. Yeah.
So what's the question again?
Why do you think you've been able to do that successfully? Because I think that a lot of churches don't do a good job of that. I think a lot of pastors kind of just focus on building the church and keeping everyone in house and all these things. And like, it never kind of goes beyond that building.
Yeah.
And then you've done a really good job of like letting people grow.
Yeah. I mean, and thank you for saying that, because I think we have done a good job. There's some things we haven't, but I think we've done a good job with that. And here's what I've learned is that everybody that is with me, I'm just part of their spiritual journey. I'm not the summation of it. So you may be with me for a year, 5 years, 10 years. I've had some guys on staff with me that have been with me now. One guy's been on staff with me for 20 years.
Wow.
Okay. We have launched churches intentionally. We have launched churches through ARC. We have launched churches everywhere. But I think for me is I know that my role is to have a platform that I share. So we have 6 people on our preaching team right now.
It's a lot.
Okay, 6.
Yeah.
Our church is rather large.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will preach maybe twice a month.
Yeah.
So why am I doing that? Because I constantly want to raise up leaders. And I'm not doing that because they're going to stay with me forever. Not everybody will like, man, stay with me, but everybody has their own calling.
Yep.
But here's what I did learn. My job is to create leaders that are better than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have our church. I mean, some people that have been on staff with me at my church, and they're not at our church anymore. They have their own churches, their own places, but phenomenal communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Our church, for whatever, has a grace and anointing to produce incredible speakers. Michael Eltack, one of the best around. And here's what I learned. People would come to me when all these young leaders are coming up, and they would come to me and say this, Pastor Benny, you better watch out. What? I'm like, watch out about what? Well, so-and-so's really good. I think they're better than you. That's what they tell me. I go, really? And they go, yeah. And I said, good.
Yeah.
Because insecure leaders, Ryan, will raise up leaders. If this is me, they'll raise up leaders that are just almost as good.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the problem. If that happens, then that person will only raise up a person that's almost as good as them.
Right.
And what happens is the Bible says that we go from glory to glory, from strength to strength. I think for me and Wendy, I'm secure enough to know better communicator, better leader, better pastor. But where they learn that from? They learn that from me. Every coaching tree, they came out of whoever it was, but then they developed a better system, the West Coast offense or whatever it may be. And I think for me, I'm proud of my sons and daughters. I'm proud of the ones that we have raised up, and we've raised up a ton of people. So my coaching tree, man, it's diverse.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I just think that we're called to do that, and we're okay with that, and we release people. And there's some people, honestly, I wish would never leave, but ultimately, he's the one that has the final call, not me. But when we launch them, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like we're getting ready to launch some people that might be our biggest church plants we've ever planted before.
Yeah.
And they know that. They know that. Dude, I'm going to launch you, and I'm going to sit back and say, oh my goodness, look what God has done in your life. And I think that's what we've done well, is cheerlead at them, let them run, let them grow, not be intimidated. And I'll end with this, is that there's only one father and mother in the house. I'm the father. My wife's the mother, quote, spiritual.
Yeah.
And when you're secure in that,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We raise a lot of sons and daughters, and we launch them in the entrepreneurial space. We're launching some incredible people in the ministry space. Everything's ministry, but church world space, incredible people. And I'm just going to sit back. My 70s are coming pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be that happy guy. Say, wow, look what they're doing. Look at that church. Look at those people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I get a sense of joy from doing that.
Yeah. I can say, in the business side of things, I've had a lot of people go through our programs and other things else and watched them grow even bigger businesses, watch them start their own programs and different things. And I've just always been like, it's great, dude. I love it.
I know. I know.
And so I just really enjoy when I see, because what you're doing is far more important than launching businesses. And to me, I'm just like, man, to see somebody who's still going strong 40 years later, still continuing to raise up new leaders, not blocking people. Cause you'll see that with churches too, where it's like, oh man, like there's nowhere for this person to do or go. It's like, no, bro, if you want to go launch something, let's go. Like, let's talk about it and figure out how to do that.
100%.
Yes. And so we never want to like block people's paths for whatever God's calling them to do. So 100%. I think it's just really cool.
100%.
So I just want to, give you kudos and everything else.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude. So obviously Church LV, if anyone wants to come visit you guys on a Sunday here in Vegas, anywhere else that they should find you?
Saturday night, we have 5 p.m.
Okay.
That's when I would go to, because then I have all Sunday off, but I got to work both days, so I don't have that choice.
Yeah.
And then honestly, just go to my website, bennyperez.com, and everything's there. They could see what I'm doing and what God's called me to do inside the church world and outside of the church world. And I appreciate if they would go take a look, and maybe got to speak to them about, checking out what I'm doing.
Cool. All right, guys, we'll go check it out. We'll link to it down below, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace. Hey, thanks for watching the last episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you catch the next episode that's playing right now.